What's up, everyone? It's me, Ivan, also known as Ivan. And today, I wanted to talk about something that has been kind of in my mind lately. If any of you know me, you know that one of the animes that started my journey into this world, into this path that I've decided for myself, was Rurouni Kenshin. Rurouni Kenshin was one of those like incredibly dear animes that it arrived to me at a very specific point in my life, and boom, Kenshin. And after that, it was like, all right, let me mold my entire personality around dinosaurs and samurais, and that was it. But recently the new remake, the Rurouni Kenshin 2023, has come out, and there's been a lot of talks whether this is like as something that is absolutely better than the original, or is it not as good as the original. What are the differences? And honestly, the 2022 to 2023 Rurouni Kenshin is not over yet. Like the first season's still going. At the time of recording this video, I think they are on episode 13 or 14 out of 22 or 24 that there's going to be. So there's still a lot of things to cover. But I feel like at this point, I feel insanely confident to talk about the differences to me of one why is better than the other, or one the other one is still superior. So I cannot show a lot of clips or music due to the copyright. So YouTube, if you're watching this, suck a dick when it comes to copyright infringement. So I'm just gonna have rotating these two images. So I'm sorry for that. I really wish the rules weren't as strict or biased as they are. But let's begin with the first one. The first is the original. Rurouni Kenshin was goofier. It was just simple as that. Rurouni Kenshin, when it came out in 1990, whatever, it was definitely goofier. The remake is way more serious than the original, and honestly, that's something that I didn't necessarily like of the original. That it was so goofy, because some scenes definitely didn't need to be as goofy. But do I like the goofiness more, or do I like the seriousness more? Overall, I'm going to give it to the original. Rurouni Kenshin, um, from the 1990s, definitely takes the cake on that one, because even though it was goofy and I necessarily didn't like the remake being as serious as it is a lot of the times, it definitely subtracts from having a contrast of moments where you're like, oh, I wish someone would be happy right now. The other thing that I don't like about the remake is the explanation of historical events. I think the original made this better than the remake is doing. What I mean by that is that in the manga, if you read the manga of Rurouni Kenshin, you have a lot of footnotes that explains to you kind of what's happening in the time period in Japan. So you understand context and little clues that would be very uh, critical for you to understand the story. For example, it's important that you know exactly in what time period they are. They're in the Meiji era, at the end of the Tokugawa era. Why is that important? Because it was a revolutionary period in Japan. But you're like, oh, okay, now that I understand the two sides and everything. So reading the manga, you get to see those footnotes explaining a lot. In the original anime, it was explained to you through conversations of the characters. In the remake, you get a lot of narration, meaning that something might be happening and then it kind of breaks the pace of the episode, where we have this voice over narrator talking about what's happening and the historical context of what's happening. And I feel like that hinders the pace of the series, and I don't particularly like that. So I feel like it was done better in the original, how they merge the historical elements. Now, let's go to Kenshin. Who do I like better in terms of the main character and then the side characters? When it comes to Rurouni Kenshin, the original, honestly, the character that I obviously liked the most was Kenshin. Aside from that, that was it. Like, I didn't necessarily find quite. It wasn't quite my liking. Kaoru, especially Yahiko, who becomes Kaoru's first student. Well, kind of first student, and I always found them very annoying, especially because Kaoru was very tsundere type of thing, where she was always beating on Kenshin, always being mean, always being kind of demeaning towards Kenshin in that Ranma and a half type of style, where that's the way I show you I like you by just like being mean to you. And Yahiko was just very annoying all the time. Sanosuke was good for the most part. But in the original, I mean, in the remake, we have the characters being toned down a lot, and Kaoru is not a tsundere anymore. She is not beating on Kenshin, being mean all the time. She has a softer personality. She's more serious, and she is very charming. Also, Yahiko, who I absolutely hated in the original, I root for him a lot. He's a kid with an egotistical, no, not egotistical, more like prideful personality, but he's a kid and he has flaws and he has more depth. So he's not just the annoying king trope. The annoying king, the annoying kid trope. He is just a kid with layers and more seriousness to him, and I absolutely love that. So in the original, I only loved Kenshin. Here, I'm loving everyone. So you can see how some of the seriousness that I didn't necessarily like, um, it actually works in its favor when it comes to the secondary characters. Now Kenshin is very serious. Well, not very serious. He's way more subtle about things. And honestly, that's okay. I like that. It's fine. It has a more realistic touch. And that's the next thing. The realism. In in the original Rurouni Kenshin, we would have moments where they were too fantastic. And I'm not saying that we don't have those in this one, but sometimes it would be borderline shonen like getting massive powers, like he's about to turn Super Saiyan. Here, they seem to be taking a way more realistic approach in which the fights are more grounded in reality. Whereas here, he would spend 20 minutes on air charging an attack and calling the attack. Here is just like a jump, boom, you're down, type of thing. Now, a lot of people might not like that, but I actually find it very refreshing because it gives a more realistic tone to the fights and makes them more raw. And I personally like that. Now, the other thing that the original has that I think it has completely beaten on the remake is the music. The music in the remake is good, but nothing that I would say, oh, it's caught my attention and I will hum that tune. It's more like generic anime music with a little flair of traditional Japanese drumming. Here on the original, we had very specific tunes. Like if you look up on YouTube, Kaoru's theme, Kenshin's theme, um, Amakakeru Ryu no Hirameki theme, uh, Sanosuke theme, you would find them, and they were very specific one from the other, and they were very good. and the selection in moments in which these themes would show up and give that enhancement to the scene, fantastic. Sadly, here is more generic, and I'm not saying that as an insult. It's just the way it is. It's definitely more generic, and I. It's not that I dislike it, but I know they could have absolutely done better. Now, on that note, let's talk about the other thing, the animation and the fights. I think the animation obviously is going to be it's going to be a little unfair to compare something done more than 25 years ago to something that is done today. Clearly the animation is better, clearly the coloring is better, the art is better, the fights are better. Now, with that said, I do gotta say, in the original, they didn't have necessarily the budget to like to show probably what they wanted to show. So they thought around some things, and that honestly um, made me very curious into how they were going to do it. If they were going to use the same type of like artistic metaphors to like describe the fight as is happening. And I'm going to say that the fights in the remake obviously are better. Um, but I can only say that, and I will make a different video about this when the episode comes. There's an episode where Rurouni Kenshin fights um, Hajime Sato, which is his like antagonist. It's like the Vegeta in him being Goku, and they have a very very intense fight. And the original made it beautiful, and it took some liberties from the manga to make it a little bit even more intense. So I'm very interested to see how this is going to do it. If the remake does that fight better, then I'm going to give that point to the remake. But other than that, then we have the original. Now, on that note, let's talk about the last point, story. What is the which one has so far given us a better story? Now, officially, I'm going to say that the remake has given us a way more consistent, a more grounded story that is very faithful to the manga. And I honestly like that. That is so faithful. Like this thing is a copy of the manga, sometimes to a fault. In the original, we had moments where they really took some liberties to enhance some some moments to make them more personal. And we can see that from episode one, in which Kaoru, she had her dad teach a student. The student turned rebellious, and now he's trying to smear the name of Kaoru's style, going as the new Hitokiri Batusai. Here in the remake, we have it exactly as in the manga, which is an in life in live servant of Kaoru who happens to help, and he just wants to buy the property, so he sends his little brother to like do the deed. So obviously having him as the father student, it's more personal and gives more gravitas. So here, sadly, that's not the case. But the problem is that in the original, they took so many liberties that they end up giving way more filler than necessary, and some plots were very confusing and janky because of what would happen next. So the fact that this one has given us more consistency, that's a point for me to say yes, I like this better. Even though I would have liked for them to keep certain like cherry pick certain things to make them still, like they did on the original. I gotta say, I'm gonna go for the side of consistency. Anyways, that's in a nutshell where I'm at so far in between these two. I'm not going to say that one is better than the other. I've been really trying to figure out if one would be better than the other, but I think both of them have their points, and I'm at a 50-50. The biggest thing for me is that I wish the remake had the music of the original and the pacing. That's it. Those are my two biggest concerns: the music and the pacing. And the pacing comes because they do, like I said, they're being very close to the manga to a fault. In the manga, you have the footnotes of historical context. Here, they just given it to you with a voice narration, which hinders on the pacing. Anyways, if you were looking for a hey, which one's better, which one this, which one's not, obviously I can give it to you. I'm being as unbiased as possible. Giving this is one of my favorite animes of all time. But I want to know from you if you have seen this and whether you agree or disagree with me. Let me know. All right. Thank you.